They interview their parents. That's gets out precious knowledge, So the precious knowledge. Down below, Huitzilopochtli, hummingbird on the left, and the little hummingbird flapping those wings 100 times a millisecond, and the little hummingbird heart representing, that self-conscious, being self-conscious about that, that extra will that is needed to cross that line. So you have to imagine when you join a protest, your first protest, oh man, I don't know, this is embarrassing, I don't know if I should do this. Your heart's pattering, right? And then you cross the line. I also sometimes use, asking someone out on a date, or asking for, for someone's, your first, you know what I'm talking about, right? The heart patterns. Or a fight, first fight, but that will to act in an educational setting, how important it is. And then Chipetotec, the flayed-skinned god, representing transformation, shedding the old you and coming forward with a new person in action. And then back again into self-reflection, back again into precious knowledge, back again into the will to act and transformation. And I thought it was such a beautiful concept. And they said it could be mechanical, and it doesn't have to be mechanical. And it overlaps all these concepts. And I thought that was a very beautiful concept for teachers, for educators, and even for just a way of living. I thought that was a beautiful thing. So those are my three concepts that I wanted to add something that's really, real, that's coming from Tucson as a pedagogical and curriculum concept. I'm going to hand it over to Cuepo, and then we'll have.
Are there any thoughts or any comments that you'd like to engage with before we go on? I apologize, I have to catch a plane a little bit, but do you have any reactions or responses to the Nawi framework that Elias has just presented us?
Well, just why did you say 3 instead of 4?
3 what? Oh, the 3 was the fire, the In Lakesh, and the Nawi Olim.
Got it.
I just like what you spoke of there at the end when you said that it's a blueprint for living. Not only is it a model for educators, it's actually a blueprint.
Yeah, outside of the classroom.
I also teach this at the community college level, and so I found a lot of students really engaged with it. But I was recently asked by a middle school in the Napa Valley to work with some of their 8th grade boys to do a. Did you have a question? Oh, do something around. They were having some issues as far as boys have issues, and so they asked me to come in and do a talk with them, and so half of the school is white and half of the school is raza, and so I went in there and I said, I'm going to take this in there, and I'm going to do, I'm going to hope to capture at least 3 things. One is, to share our cultura, right? But 2, to share it as a universal value, where you can be white, you can be brown, and this is truly a universal value. That's the way I've learned it in Tucson. And the third thing is this relationship between white and brown. In the Napa Valley, it's Latinos are not able to be represented in our community, and that's there's a lot of reasons for that. And so in the classroom, my goal was to have them kind of see each other that way through showing some of the Latino culture, some of the Raza culture. And so I found they were really, I did a little template where they could analyze each Texcalipoca, and I found it to be a really great tool for, in that setting.
If there is this whole view of integration between white and brown, I guess, why the use of this kind of native imagery instead of, I don't know, say modern or anything else?
I'm sorry?
If there's this view on whole integration between, I guess, white and brown, why use native imagery instead of using modern imagery?
Yeah, and then we want to reorganize that thinking into seeing this as modern as well, and I think one comment on that is in Santa Monica and West LA. And that's another thing that came out of the Raza Studies Now conference. Like all Raza Studies has to be specific to the region. You know, East LA is very different than West LA. West LA, Chicanos are like 30% of the schools. We're still a numerical minority. And so we have to pay attention to the Anglos. We have to cater to them, partly. But we also, as Chicanos, you have to emphasize a Chicano movement principle, and that's self-determination. You know what? We shouldn't be responding complacently, acquiescing to certain modern concepts that don't work for us. Like, you know, I said in the earlier panel, the capitalist university doesn't want us to go back to our communities. They want us to make, you know, people go into college to make money and buy houses and all this. But, you know, Raza Studies, one of our values is return to the community. I don't think that's ancient, but there's nothing wrong with that. That's self-determined, and that's the main thing. And yeah, and I think this can also be viewed as a technology. And lastly, this doesn't have to be looked at as just Aztec or just Mexican. Like, can't we look at that as universal? You know what I mean? Like, yeah.
Two things that I want to say before I step out. The first thing is, I really appreciate this framework and the way that you explained it, Elias, because it really brings home a lot of the issues that we are today dealing with. When these were created, they were not created in the way that we are speaking of them now. Because they were living in a very different context, in a very different time, in a very different situation than we are now. We cannot apply those things. So your question actually is a very good question that speaks back to our deschooling practices that don't help us think critically. So I think that as we're teaching the Tezcatlipocas, the 4 Tezcatlipocas in Nahuatl, we also ask students to develop inquiry and curiosity. What are some things that you're curious about? How do you think that this was used then, today, and in the future? And where are the female representations? You know, and how is it that we're prescribing psychological tenets to these very dynamic figures? Because it helps us relate to the things that we are seeing in our state today. And so it's constant dialogue, constant pushing of different dialectics, you know, opposites happening at the same time. And it's very important to ask those questions and to encourage our students to ask these questions and to push back to what other people may think, like Norma Espinosa. You know, why would she have that perception with her background? And so just constantly going back to inquiry, and the goal is to have more questions than answers, because that's how we can be creative.
I just want to, 2 quick things. What I love about this, I always keep learning constantly. And 2 quick things. One tenet we have is only art can save us. And when I look at this, I think, you know what? The Mexica books, the art was all destroyed. And here we are today looking at what is the greatest work of art in North America. And it's a metaphor for time, and on the practical side as well, this is a metaphor for leadership right now. Because, I mean, just to personalize it for a little bit, when I say I'm the leader of the Libertafricante movement, that's the tip of the pyramid for the media, for the outside world. At the end, we organize like a circle. I mean, Underground Library in New Mexico is the leader. Sonia is the leader, all down the leader. And I think for our communities, this is how we need to design leadership. Otherwise, we're under this other paradigm. But at the end, we're deciding the narrative. So those are great questions to have. We have the power now to teach that skill to redefine for our survival, and also to live a full life in the praxis, like people would say.
Can I respond? I have my hand up.
Okay, let's go here, and then we'll go to you.
Okay, yeah, no, I just wanted to, it's exactly that, going back to the conocimiento. how do we as academics of everything we're learning on the higher level, the modern level, things like that, bridge it with conocimiento in our ancestry and our own histories, and then looking at these ways to examine it and to empower ourselves to be able to bridge the gap with the community. Because I see that like as one of the biggest keys on enabling the community to demand K-12 curriculum of inclusion is first they need to know themselves and why they need that visibility in the education. So I think it's very important to go back to be modern.
Yeah. Tomas?
Okay, are we sure? Okay. That's the Chicano in me. No, first of all, I want to address
The Chicano
this
nationalist.
question over here. Just to be really straight up, what this indicates to me is to exist. Okay? Because K-12, we do not exist. So this is really clever, this is ancient, and this is modern at the same time. And so what we're dealing with here, we're dealing with dominant culture versus a quote-unquote subculture, which is, the Mexican culture, the Chicano culture. This right here proves that we are not inferior, that we're not lazy, that we're not stupid, that we have ancient roots. So what this is doing right here, it is subverting white supremacy ideology, even if it's for a moment, for a day, for a lifetime. So this is why this is so serious. And I have others, I'm a Chicano studies professor at Santa Barbara City College, and I'll have other students tell me in regards to the concept of Aztlán, right, to our myths, like, well, those are just myths. What's the difference between our myths and your myths? And thank God I was quick on my feet and I had to think quick, right? And I told them, I go, well, you know what? Our myths don't oppress you in regards to manifest destiny, to and going on. And I had like what's the word? Epiphany. And so, but the thing is that it's about a dialogue. It's not about me being right, you being wrong.
Yeah.
It's about let's dialogue about this because we're not going away, you're not going away. And so this right here is deep and it's powerful. And so that's why people fear it, on multiple levels. And so I think your question, in regards to I don't cater. One of the things that I do, when I have my students, I'm not here to convince you of anything. This is the history, this is what's going on. So we all have different approaches to Chicano studies. And so I just think that it's really great, again, to be dialogical. It's about a dialogue. And it's always changing.
And it's also called critical thinking. That's an important concept. I think Roberto wanted to ask something, and then Cuepo, we should give you some the floor before you leave.
So I'm working with a group of artists right now, and we're talking about creating greater spaces for Chicana, Chicano, Latino, art. And we're also creating a school of gender, race, and nations, as in indigenous nations. And three important concepts come to mind, and one is a sense of reclamation, right? Is reclaiming that knowledge that is a part of our culture and a part of our community. Because a lot of the things that we do, the way that we think about spirituality, sexuality, our relationships with each other, one of the most amazing and transformative things for me, for Chicana studies, has been when I find out about the Mexicas, about the Mayans, it's like, whoa, this is how I have always believed, right? And because it was made illegal and because it was made a cause to be killed and to be devalued and to be counted out, we stopped naming it, we stopped speaking it. So that sense of reclamation of who we are is a really important piece. The other part is restoration, right? Restoring our relationships with each other so that it's not seen as either or, right? Because in our paradigm, it goes in a circle. It's not sort of these lines to here, to there, and the sort of this hierarchical kind of thing, right? And the last thing is recentering, right? Because we've been decentered. Our lives were decentered from those things that were important to us, those values, those aesthetics, right? We got decentered, right? So it's about recentering things in a way where we change it back to those values and those things that are important and that mean a lot to us, and where we can find and see ourselves. So anyways, I wanted to share those three things that I've learned from working with indigenous nation studies and working with these Latino gay artists mostly, but also undocumented, and also Mexican artists that are being told that their art is not Mexican enough, right? Because they're not staying within a certain palette of colors. So anyways, that's all.
The
Gracias.
idea is to put all of this into studies into their schools. And so we need a lot of help. We have different chapters that we've imagined. The role of the student, we have curriculum, pedagogy, Chicana studies, and we definitely have Google Docs that are available and open to everybody to write and to give feedback, so that we can put this in a package, of course, as a living document that will always change, so that others can have the strong conversations that we're having now. And thank you for being here. And Elias has my contact information if you would like it. Catch a plane. You're gonna say something.
Congratulations on your PhD.
Yeah.
Thanks. You want to go up and then?
Sure.
Because we have like 15 more minutes. We'll have Carlos talk.
Yeah, and I mean, there seems to be a lot of dialogue, which is exactly what we were hoping for. I just want to bring up a picture I showed it.
Sign in real quick on the sign sheet.
As we have this discussion. So I'd just like to share 3 to 5 minutes about some stuff that's occurring right now that's directly connected to Tucson and to NASA Studies Now, and it's kind of what's happening in Northern California, Bay Area specifically. So I bring this picture up because this is one of the seeds that was planted for kind of where we're at now. And it's a picture of, I mean, there's a lot of different communities in this picture, and it's right outside the Tucson Unified School District board this past summer, Freedom Summer, that was held there. That's where we met. And there's some students from Napa Valley College, there's some Tucson students, there's some folks from Texas, and you know, probably not getting all the other communities in there, but it's a picture that shows this solidarity that is truly occurring right even in this circle, right? It's amazing. It's I mean I've been following you, brother, you know, on Facebook and all this stuff. So it's you know, it's fantastic to have you here and to have, you know, one of our, you know, 1968. You know, I mean, that's where it all began, right? You know? So kind of what's happening right now. Since then, what has occurred specifically in the Bay Area, you know, Bay Area has a lot of history, you know, with ethnic studies. You know, San Francisco State walkouts, longest university. Our students then longest time students have shut down a university within San Francisco State, and where it also houses our only college of ethnic studies in the nation. And so what occurred this past fall, post Summer, Freedom Summer, was that there was a conference held in San Francisco, and Curtis Acosta and Sean Arce and many of us met up at this conference, and we were able to actually kind of spontaneously have an ethnic studies assembly right after the conference. The conference was actually Teachers for Social Justice. They do an annual conference each year. Fantastic conference. A lot of ethnic studies, high school teachers are there, and scholars, but they were able to open up a Sunday for us to do an ethnic studies assembly, where we had Tucson folks, we had Los Angeles there, we had the whole Bay Area, as well as the North Bay, the Napa Valley, as far up as the Napa Valley, and we all came together, you know, and the agenda it wasn't a tight agenda. We were kind of just bouncing off, where are we at? You know, there's a crisis in Tucson occurring, there's a Raza Studies Now movement, you know, in the Napa Valley, we're a smaller movement, but we are a movement. We're trying to implement these, and so we've gotten this dialogue in San Francisco, and it's really important in San Francisco because the San Francisco Unified School District has ethnic studies courses, has an ethnic studies program. The Filipino American community has done an amazing job. The Pinoy community has done an amazing job. One of our leaders in the nation in creating ethnic studies courses in school districts, right, in San Francisco. So we all came together and we said, well, let's move this forward and create. This is an ethnic studies network, right? And you know, we're in the Bay Area, but it doesn't mean. I mean, we have Los Angeles, we have Tucson, we have Texas. You know, what can we do in the Bay Area to, you know, as I think you said, well, what Tucson folks are saying, please light the fire wherever you're at, you know. And so we had a follow-up conference to that about 2 months ago, back in San Francisco, much tighter, where now we're actually putting together one of our ethnic studies heroes, Allison, who teaches at San Francisco State, Filipino American, is putting together like a wiki. I don't know what it's called. It's a wiki. It's on the internet where you can tap into it, and it's got all of these resources. And
Is it a Google Doc?
It's not a Google Doc. It's like literally called wiki something. I think it says wiki.
It is a wiki.
Yeah, it's a wiki. And so a system's being created. There's talk about doing an ethnic studies kind of training each year in the Bay Area for teachers, for activists, for students, and so forth. And Curtis Acosta has been able to open up a day at the Free Minds, Free People conference in Chicago this summer for ethnic studies folks to come together and continue to develop. And Chicago folks, Midwest folks are super excited to have West Coast representation, specifically for this conference called Free Minds, Free People, which happens every 2 years. And they're thinking about bringing it to the West Coast for the first time 2 years from now. So there's some great movement occurring.
What month is that real quick?
It's called Free Minds, Free People. And I haven't been to it. It'll be our first time going there. But according to Curtis, it's probably for him, to quote Curtis, it's the best conference that he gets to attend to because it has the most diversity. It has youth activists, it has scholars, it has academics, it has, and the conference is centered in each, this summer in Chicago, and part of the conference is that you take visits around the community, so you visit different community organizations, so you really get to know the community, the city, in addition to networking and organizing people across the nation. But the point that I'm trying to make with that is we have a space of ethnic studies, and they've really been, they've opened that, and it really comes out of this ethnic studies network out of the Bay Area and connecting with Master Studies now. And so the question really is, how do we tighten up our network, our solidarity, and we were even talking about this over lunch. How does Knox become a space or a site where we can have that space to, all of these wonderful workshops are amazing, we're all doing great work, but how does Knox provide a day, half a day, or whatever for us to ensure that we're all on the same page, so that when something like Tucson happens, or we're hoping that, in Texas, you guys, are able to not suffer anything that Tucson suffered, but how do we respond? How do we have that tighter network? And so I think Master Studies now is really leading a re-emerging movement, right? That's really central there, and how can we support all of you and really, allowing us to look at this document, all the way back to 1969 with the plan of Santa Barbara. So just wanted to share that piece of kind of what's occurring now in the Bay Area.
Awesome. And we have about 7 minutes left, technically, on the time. So yeah, welcome any questions, comments. Also, something to think about for us to hear and take home is like, what do you all need? What do people need? What do people need from Raza Studies now, from the Tucson struggle, etc. But yeah, you had a thought.
One of the things outside of organizing the curriculum in K-12 that I think is interesting is coming out of the underground library in Albuquerque. As we look at the set of books and how we make access to it for teachers or students in K-12, the question that comes up, and it's also in my mind because of how the Dreamers were changing the dialogue, right, about not just students, it's our families, is how do we, the underground library is talking about literacy, family literacy, where, if it's not enough that we put it in our K-12 schools and higher ed, what about parents being able to access some of these books or some of this curriculum, because that's right. If we have students who can go home and have these conversations with families, right, that's going to even be more critical, right, in our community. So it's really thinking about, even outside of educational systems, how are we creating literacy using some of the books from the undergrad library as a start, and then actually identifying in New Mexico, we have our own history of banned movies like Salt of the Earth and Van Books, that the Vaughn, right, in Vaughn, New Mexico, we had two teachers, two sisters.
That's
who were
right. What were their names, do you remember?
Oh.
No, yeah, that was a big issue about 10 years ago.
Exactly. So it's that idea, though, of outside of even the K-12 schools, which you want to definitely impact, and outside of higher ed, which, right, is the focus of Knox, how do we create literacy within families so that they have access? We really think about access to, right, this information.
Yeah. That's a great question. I don't have an immediate answer, but I think that's a great.
What we're thinking about now, particularly right now, because I don't know if other communities are also thinking about, right? It's not enough with the ethnic studies in our K-12.
Yeah.
How do we put it? And it really, I started thinking about this when those folks came to Albuquerque to share what they were doing, to say, hey, we're teaching. They didn't let us teach it in the school, so we're doing Saturday classes, and not only are the students coming, but some of their families are coming.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah.
So that's, I'm really thinking about again this notion, and then that's not new. That's stuff that we were doing, at least that I know of, that we were doing in New Mexico, doing those popular political education pieces in the community, not just in our schools back in the 60s, right?
Yeah.
Well, I got really excited once y'all were saying that you were putting together a kit so that other people can emulate that, because honestly that's what's been a lot of that discussion that we as the students at UTSA have been having is, okay, we need to spread awareness as fast as possible because the need to act is immediate, and how do we have like a specific like kind of checklist of, okay, we need to have this and this and this and that done. So we were thinking, okay, we need a kit so that we can, because we're being asked to go speak at all these schools.